touching story. Little girl kicked out for stealing milk for baby. Incredible millionaire transformation sparks hope. Lily stared at the milk cartons in the grocery store, her stomach twisting in a knot of desperation. She didn't want to do this, but Tommy needed his nutrients, and her mother couldn't afford even a drop of milk. Her heart raced, beating against her ribcage like a caged bird wanting to escape. She watched other shoppers toss groceries into their carts, all while she stood frozen, weighing the enormity of her decision. Finally, after glancing around to ensure nobody was watching, her small hands snatched a single carton. The weight felt heavy, not from the packaging but from guilt already creeping in. She turned to leave, but as the bell above the door jingled, the rush of shame washed over her. Fear gripped her as she was grabbed by a store employee, their grip on her wrist firm and unyielding. "You can't just take what isn't yours," they shouted, making her shrink, feeling smaller than she ever had. The world spun around her, the accusation echoed. All she had wanted was to feed her brother. She was a thief now, branded and shamed. As she was escorted outside, she glanced back to see curious eyes on her. Would this slip bring more trouble to her family? Would her mother, already so burdened, feel the weight of her failure? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Shivering, Lily's mind spun in chaos. What would her mother say? Would she be angry or disappointed? Maybe she'd feel helpless, seeing yet again how tough life was, and Lily feared being the source of that anguish. But a fire ignited beneath her fear, the urgent need to prove she wasn't just a thief but a protector of her baby brother. She felt torn, like fragments of glass embedding into her skin, guilt mingling with the fierce resolve to do anything for her family. But what would people think? Were they viewing her through the lens of their biases? Days turned into whispers around the neighborhood, her name becoming synonymous with criminal kid. She grappled with the shame while quietly trying to muster her worth through the hurtful commentary. And soon, the local newspaper picked up the story. The headlines blazed bright and loud, bringing unwanted attention her way. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, it did. The unease in her gut grew into a roaring panic, a fear only fueled by the conversation swirling around her. They didn't know her heart. They didn't see the sacrifices. Lily began working on an invention that might help kids like her, something to elevate their world, but every time she saw a familiar face, the weight of their judgment felt impossibly heavy. Thoughts twisted inside her, a chaotic storm brewing with every frown aimed her way. Would her efforts be met with acceptance or scorn? This question gnawed at her, each moment driving a wedge deeper into her resolve. Now, she stood at the brink, ready to push through to the other side, but still grappling with the shadows of her past misstep. As the community showdown approached, fears clawed at her insides. Would they see her as more than just a girl who stole milk? Would she spark hope, or would she drown in resentment? She needed to confront these tangled voices demanding her silence. What choices had led her here? Lily's mind raced, heart racing. Was there truly a place for her in a world that didn't seem to want her? The stakes had never been higher, and she had never felt more unmoored. Would she reveal the dream burning so brightly within her? She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the battle ahead. Lily stood outside the grocery store, the crisp morning air mingling with the lingering warmth of shame. The memory of her theft spiraled in her mind, a relentless reminder of how easily desperation could morph into disgrace. Yet, each passing moment stirred a flicker of determination within her. She had to reshape her story, not just for herself, but for Tommy, who deserved more than what their circumstances provided. In the days following the incident, all taunts echoed in her mind. She immersed herself in crafting her invention. The project became her refuge, a way to channel the turmoil into something tangible. She found an old tablet tucked away under layers of neglected school supplies, its screen cracked but still functional. On its surface, she began sketching ideas, brainstorming a device that could provide nutrition for kids from families struggling the way hers had. If only she could create something affordable and accessible, perhaps others wouldn't need to face the indignities she had. But doubt was a persistent intruder. Each design she envisioned felt insufficient, the technical barriers looming like insurmountable walls. Would anyone even care about her ideas? The voices of disapproval taunted her further, pushing her to question her abilities. She struggled with mechanics she barely understood, feeling each flaw in her design mocking her plight. Yet, as the days wore on, a tenacity emerged, a realization that she had the capacity to learn, to grow, and to overcome. Determined to gain more knowledge, Lily sought help from the one person she knew who could guide her, Mr. Blake, the retired engineer who lived in their neighborhood. He'd always been kind, a soft-spoken man with a knack for fixing things. Heart racing, she knocked on his door, her hands trembling at the thought of bringing him her idea. When he opened the door, surprise flashed across his face, but he invited her in with a warm smile. "What brings you here, Lily?" For a moment, her voice faltered. But the thought of Tommy waiting at home filled her with renewed resolve. She explained her project, the challenges she'd faced, and the painful incident that had sparked her motivation. The shame clawed at her throat, but she pressed on, fueled by her determination to make something of herself beyond the stain of her past. Mr. Blake listened intently before offering his wisdom. "You know, failure is often the best teacher. The trick is to keep your mind open, to embrace those failures as part of the process. Let us see what we can do together." As he guided her through the basics of engineering principles, she felt a shift within herself. Knowledge replaced uncertainty, and hope began to replace despair. Each new concept was a stepping stone, and with it, she built a clearer vision of her invention. The weight of her situation transformed into fuel for her purpose. Her evenings were filled with sketches and notes. Modified prototypes sprawled on the floor of her small room, where the walls felt a little less constricting with each idea she scribbled down. Every misstep only cemented her resolve to prove her capabilities to the world. Yet, her journey was still marred by a choice she could not ignore: a chance to confront the community, to face those who had labeled her, to demand that the girl they saw as a failure could also be a creator. Standing on the threshold of her transformation, she felt the unsettling familiarity of fear creep back in. A whirlpool of anticipation and anxiety swirled in her chest, sending shivers down her spine. Would they see her as a symbol of redemption or merely as the girl who had stolen? With the community forum just days away, she was left with one burning question: would she find the courage to share her vision publicly, or would uncertainty swallow her once more? Taking a deep breath, Lily prepared to seize the moment. She owed it to herself and to Tommy to stand firm. The next chapter of her life was about to unfold, but would she embrace the weight of her aspirations, or would the past cling to her, holding her back? The moment of truth was rapidly approaching. The morning of the forum arrived, and as Lily stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, she hardly recognized the girl staring back. The hollows under her eyes had deepened from late nights spent poring over sketches, but her posture was the most notable change. It was firmer, bolstered by a thought that lingered at the forefront of her mind. She was no longer merely a victim of circumstance. She was a creator in her own right. Dressed in her best clothes, an oversized sweater that had seen better days, and jeans frayed at the knees, she felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Whatever came from this day wouldn't just be about the invention. It would be her debut as a person who stood up for herself. After several deep, grounding breaths, she turned away from the mirror, feeling ready, maybe for the first time in a long time. The venue was a small community center buzzing with chatter and anticipation. Rows of folding chairs filled the room, a platform for locals to air their grievances, share dreams, or simply connect. As she entered, Lily's heart pounded like a wild drum in her chest, each beat urging her to retreat. But alongside the fear was a resolve that she had nurtured over weeks, an overwhelming need to claim her space. Mr. Blake was already there, thumbs tucked in his pocket, watching the crowd with a patient smile. Spotting her, he raised a hand and beckoned her over. "You're ready, right?" His smile was encouraging yet firm, grounding her swirling emotions. I think so, she managed, though her voice trembled. Hold on to that determination, he advised as they settled into their seats. This is your chance, Lily. Speak from your heart. As the community members began to share their thoughts, Lily listened intently, absorbing their stories of struggle and resilience. Some spoke of unemployment, others about health struggles, but it was the story of a single mother struggling to put food on the table that gripped her. Each word reverberated within her echoes of her own desperation, her journey of shadows and light. The truth was that they were all intertwined, and somehow, she had to be part of the solution. When it was finally her turn, she felt the tide of anxiety swell once more. Rising from her seat, Lily cleared her throat as the murmurs quieted. The spotlight, however faint, felt like a beam of scrutiny, but it was also her canvas. Taking a deep breath, she laid out her vision for the invention, explaining how it could provide nutritional support and dignity for families facing food insecurity. She emphasized that anyone, regardless of their past, could be part of change. As she spoke, the words flowed more freely than she had anticipated. The responses grew from wary to engaged. Eyes that peered skeptically began to soften. With each detail she shared from her initial setbacks to the knowledge she had gained, she could see recognition flickering in their faces, a shared understanding. Yet, as the conversation turned to her past, their eyes dropped, suspicion hanging like a heavy cloud. Aren't you the girl who stole? Someone called out, the tone sharp. The question stung, forcing her breath to hitch. But instead of retreating, she leaned in, passion igniting within her. Yes. And that girl was desperate. But I refuse to let that define who I am now. I believe in redemption, my own and others. The silence was deafening for a beat, anticipation crackling like static in the air. Would they reject her for her past, or embrace her vision for the future? As the discussion continued, various opinions emerged, both supportive and critical. Yet, with every word exchanged, Lily was emboldened, discovering strength in the very argument that had once shackled her. She could feel the weight of expectation, but within it was the newfound realization that she could alter perceptions through her actions. By the end of the forum, a sense of accomplishment washed over her, mingling with the unease of rejection still lingering in the air. Maybe, just maybe, her vulnerabilities could forge connections that would open doors for something bigger than herself. Standing on uncertain ground, her next steps remained murky, but something deeper than fear urged her onward. It beckoned her to explore the potential within the community, beyond her own initiative. With a mindset forged in resolve and vulnerability, she left the community center knowing that the battle for acceptance was only beginning. But lurking beneath the surface of her newfound courage was another question: what would she have to sacrifice to truly bring her vision to life? Would she navigate the obstacles ahead, or would her past continue to haunt her choices? Lily stepped onto the cracked sidewalk outside the community center, the weight of the day still pressing against her chest. Fresh air filled her lungs, but it hardly steadied her racing thoughts. What had started as a timid presentation had now transformed into a catalyst for change, yet the lingering shadows of doubt loomed large. She felt an exhilarating rush but was still haunted by the fear of her past. As she walked, an internal dialogue bounced between her heart and mind. She had stood up, shared her story, and articulated her vision, but how would she navigate this uncertain path forward? Questions flooded her mind. Should she seek out more forums to share her invention, or would pursuing that path bring unwanted scrutiny? Determination gnawed at her, clashing with the caution that had kept her safe for so long. In the solitude of her small apartment, the weight of her aspirations enveloped her like an old, familiar blanket. She pulled out a blank notebook and began to draft her plans. It was a raw format right now, merely sketches and scribbles, but it was a start, a tangible manifestation of her commitment to rise above her past. She envisioned workshops where community members could gather, learn, and even contribute in building the project. The thought sparked excitement, a flicker of hope and possibility. But then, a servile shadow crossed her mind. The girls from her past, peers who had laughed at her misfortunes, could they become adversaries against her vision? With a sigh, she tossed her pencil aside and leaned back in her chair, staring at the peeling paint on the ceiling. Was she building a bridge to triumph or merely setting herself up for another fall? Days passed, each one etched with new plans, hopeful ideas, and widespread uncertainty. Mr. Blake continued to support her, checking in often. One afternoon, over steaming cups of coffee, he posed a question that rattled her. What do you think will happen when people start to see your project succeed? A chill gripped her. Would they celebrate, or would her past erupt like an unwanted specter? What if they just remember the girl who stole? She replied, fear puncturing her voice. Lily, your past is a chapter, not the whole story. You need to focus on who you are becoming, not just who you were. His eyes were earnest, but the shadows of doubt danced in the back of her mind. With a reluctant sigh, Lily pulled out her notebook again. Okay. But I need to prepare for the backlash. What if they don't see the value behind my project? Then you educate them. Get them involved. Let them be the change they want to see, he suggested, gesturing animatedly. A spark ignited inside her. The notion of not running from the past but confronting it, challenging perception and stepping into her power, felt empowering. It rattled another layer of her resolve free. Could she face potential antagonism head-on, forging authenticity and connection through her journey? With each passing day, she dug deeper into her research, uncovering resources and establishing connections with local leaders. She immersed herself in learning, refining her concept, and gradually forming a cohesive initiative, one rooted in redemption, community, and second chances. Yet, lurking in the background, her past threatened to rattle her foundations at any moment, waiting for her to falter. As days blended into weeks and her plans began taking shape, she couldn't shake one growing fear. What if the very people she aimed to support ended up as her harshest critics? The night sky loomed heavy as she sat on her bed, wrestling with her thoughts. The phone buzzed next to her, a message from an unknown number. A chill crept down her spine as she hesitated before opening it, willing herself to anticipate the worst. I know about you, and I will make sure everyone else does too. An icy thrill shot through her. Was this a warning, or had someone already begun to initiate the reckoning she had been both dreading and preparing for? The unsettling question reverberated in her mind. Could she transform her vision into reality before her past silenced her for good? Lily paced her small apartment, the walls seemingly closing in as she absorbed the tension of the message that had arrived on her phone. The phrase echoed in her mind, a boomerang of old shame and new determination. Who was this person taunting her? Was it simply someone trying to intimidate her, or was it a reminder of the scrutiny she feared? Taking a deep breath, she sat down at her desk, the notebook open next to her. Each page was filled with ideas that now felt threatened. The message had ignited something inside her, an urgency that twisted both fear and resolve into a singular focus. Her past didn't just loom, it threatened to derail her efforts. But now she needed to confront this head-on. Okay, focus, she murmured to herself. Writing in her notebook had become a lifeline, a method to sift through her chaos. She began jotting down a list of potential allies who could help her counteract any backlash, people who believed in her vision regardless of the past. Her mind danced between names, local teachers, business leaders, and anyone who might invest in empowering their community. Each name was a tiny anchor in a sea of uncertainty, but her heart raced at the thoughts of disloyalty. Could any of these individuals be influenced to turn against her? She shook her head, trying to dismiss the paranoia that gripped her mind. Perhaps she was becoming too absorbed in her own fears. But the uncertainty of potential betrayal felt like an ominous shadow clinging close. Just then, an idea struck her. What if she preemptively addressed her past? What if, instead of hiding or waiting for it to be weaponized against her, she controlled the narrative? Her fingers hurried to scratch out plans for a series of discussions that would involve not only her project but also her history, the mistakes she had made and the lessons she had learned. It was risky, transparent, but it also seemed liberating. By acknowledging her challenges openly, she could dismantle any ammunition others might hold. Wouldn't it be powerful to redefine the perception of who she was? The thought began to glow in her mind, illuminating a way forward through the fear. She shifted her focus back to her plans, detailing the discussions she envisioned. With them, she could foster a dialogue about transformation, resilience, and acceptance. If she could equip herself with anticipation, then the surprise and backlash she feared might not feel as devastating. The release of tension was palpable. As the weeks unfolded, Lily committed herself to this new roadmap. She reached out to her prospective allies, inviting them to participate not in just her initiative but in a broader conversation about growth and the importance of community support. Each positive reply she received added a layer of confidence she hadn't fully recognized until now. This was her chance to not only craft her project but to shape the way her personal narrative intersected with it. Phone calls and meetings replaced the stillness of her previous uncertainty, infusing her days with purpose. Yet, after the promising discussions faded, lurking dread would occasionally creep back. And what if the message sender made good on their threat? Then one evening, as she mulled over plans, a knock on her door startled her. Heart racing, she opened it to find a face from her past, the girl who had laughed at her for stealing. Emily stood there, vulnerability flickering in her amber eyes. Did she come to confront or confess? "Can we talk?" Emily asked, splitting the silence like a knife, the tension between them crackling in the air. Could this be the confrontation that would test Lily's fortitude, forcing her to confront not only her past but how far she had come? Every instinct told her to retreat, but she stepped aside and let Emily in, ready to face whatever came next. Lily's heart thundered in her chest as the door swung closed behind Emily. The room felt like it had been charged with electricity, every tension-filled moment elongating into awkwardness. She gestured toward the couch, trying to quell her own racing thoughts. She couldn't help but wonder what Emily wanted from her now, after years of distance and acrimony. "Thanks for seeing me," Emily began, settling hesitantly onto the edge of the couch. The vulnerability in her expression caught Lily off guard. What was happening? "I've thought about reaching out for a while," Emily continued, her voice breaking the thick silence that enveloped them. "After everything that happened, I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was horrible to you back then." Lily's instinct was to dismiss her words, to guard her heart against the shame and confusion of her past. Instead, she found herself breathing deeply again, searching Emily's face for a glimmer of sincerity. Did this moment hold the potential for a deeper reconciliation? Or was it simply an attempt to assuage guilt? "I don't want to go back to that time, Emily," Lily replied, her voice steady yet edged with caution. "What happened? It changed me." Emily flinched, as if Lily's words were more than just a statement. "I know. I heard about your project. I'm proud of you. I didn't think you'd rise from everything, but you did. You're doing something good," she said, taking a deep breath. "And I just wanted to say that you inspire me." Lily felt a warmth swell in her chest, conflicting with the skepticism that played at the edges of her mind. Could she accept this kind of acknowledgement from her past tormentor? She had spent so much time crafting her narrative, rebuilding her identity, looking into the mirror with newfound courage. Was it worth reopening old wounds? "Thank you," Lily said, trying to measure the weight of the moment. "Acceptance is a process for me still. I've had to confront my past mistakes, like stealing that day. I hit rock bottom, and this project is my way of showing that we can rise." For the first time, she witnessed a flicker of purpose in Emily's eyes. "I really want to help. I'll offer my time, anything you think I can contribute. I owe it to you and your journey." As uncertainty crept back into Lily's mind, she caught herself weighing the implications of such an alliance. Could she trust someone who had a hand in deepening her shame? It felt foolhardy but undeniably tempting. As she considered whether Emily's intentions were genuine or self-serving, she reminded herself of her own roadmap to confront every challenge head-on. "I'll consider you," Lily replied, her voice equitably cool. "But we need to be transparent. This dialogue isn't just for show. I can't afford any distractions or setbacks. I want to carry another weight." Nodding silently, Emily appeared to understand, and Lily wondered if she was ready to take this leap of faith. Would collaborating with Emily provide the support she craved, or would it unravel everything she built? As they continued their conversation, Lily felt that old tension return, the familiar dance of doubt and determination. Perhaps this second chance for reconciliation could reinforce her mission, but the prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. Each time Emily spoke, a fragment of her own past echoed back, challenging her to rethink her definitions of forgiveness and trust. The conversation stretched late into the evening as revelations unfolded. Bonded by their shared history, they realized there was a subtle power in their connection, a way to uplift one another rather than remain at odds. Yet, as Emily began to express her personal struggles with overcoming her past choices, a chilling notion set in. What if the very sins Emily had sought forgiveness for could still cast a shadow over Lily's carefully curated narrative? Before they could engage further in their emotional exploration, Lily's phone buzzed a new message, its ominous presence cutting through the fragile camaraderie they'd begun to weave. The sender was unknown, but the chilling words sent a tremor through her whole being. "I know everything about you. This isn't over." Lily's decision hung in the air, a question now more profound than before. Could she capture her story without succumbing to the chains of her past? Lily stared at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. The words loomed ominously, a specter resurrecting fears she thought she'd managed to lay to rest. The invitation to confront her demons was poorly timed. Here, seated across from Emily, she had just begun to explore the fragile threads of a new alliance, and now an unseen threat loomed, promising to disrupt her carefully constructed reality. Who would send something like this? She muttered, more to herself than to Emily, who looked equally taken aback by the sudden shift in atmosphere. "Is everything all right?" Emily inquired, her earlier vulnerability replaced by a flash of concern. Yet, beneath that concern was something else, a flicker of uncertainty that Lily couldn't miss. "It's just a message. An anonymous one," Lily replied, forcing a steadiness into her tone. "But it doesn't matter. What matters is how we move forward." She felt the tension knot in her stomach, the notion that resurfacing past grievances might not only impact her emotionally but also threaten her project's integrity. As she redirected her focus, the ambience shifted again, the room thick with emotional weight. Trust and doubt danced in her mind like fireflies, leaving her overwhelmed yet determined. She had worked too hard to construct her current path, to associate with someone who could potentially destabilize her progress. "Perhaps we should look at how we can work together without dragging in what's tainting our pasts," Lily suggested, attempting to conceal her rising anxiety. "You mentioned a desire to contribute. I need someone who can really stand by me." Emily nodded, a newfound resolve lighting her eyes. "I'm ready to work hard for this, Lily. I know I've made mistakes, but I can bring my skills to your project. My minute experience in fundraising could be beneficial. If you're thinking long-term, I could make some connections." Lily felt the flicker of encouragement, but it battled intensely with the nagging fear in her mind. The unknown sender's taunt haunted her thoughts, injecting poison into her ambitions. "Planning is essential," Lily asserted, her hands curling into fists as she tried to focus her energy. "I want a detailed strategy for each segment of our project. We need to identify our targets, structure timelines, and anticipate possible setbacks before they arise." "It'll be a learning experience for both of us," Emily replied, understanding the depth of the stakes involved. "My mistakes taught me how failures can inspire greater strength." Lily nodded, drawn into a nervous dialogue that began to reshape her views on collaboration. Emily's reminders of what had once caused them strife could also parallel what they could accomplish together, if they kept their focus forward. Still, the message loomed like a shadow. Each time she glanced at her phone, dread enveloped her thoughts once more. What was the sender's objective? Was it a mere threat, or did they hold tangible leverage over her past? Determined to wrestle back her sense of autonomy, Lily pondered whether it was time to use this looming threat as fuel rather than fear. What if confronting this directly could empower her? The clarity of her next steps which she sought felt unrelenting. "Emily, can we map out some ideas right now on how to prevent setbacks related to my past?" Lily suggested, her determination sharpening into a focused blade. "I can't afford another distraction, and I'm not willing to lose what I've fought so hard to rebuild." Their shared conversation spiraled into a brainstorming session, transformed by fear into motivation. With each idea, Lily felt a step taken away from the shadows of her past. Each exchange built a foundation for a partnership burgeoning with possibility. Yet somewhere within, doubt still brewed. A renewed sense of caution crept in. While she was willing to welcome Emily as a collaborator, she couldn't ignore the weight of what was happening behind the scenes. The follow-up message felt inevitable. Time ticked, growing more menacing as dusk settled outside, shadows creeping longer through the windows. In a world of uncertainty, Lily grasped her phone, ready to confront the encroaching darkness threatening not just her project but her very narrative. What if this threat turned out to be a pivotal player in her life's story? What path would she find if she dared to uncover the person behind those haunting words? And as she prepared to unveil the truth, she wondered, was she strong enough to confront not just her past but also the unknown that threatened her future? Lily's heart raced as she stared down at her phone. The ominous silence was broken only by the faint buzz of notifications from a world unfocused and distant. Caution battled with resolve. The creeping shadows from dusk began to mirror the uncertainty wrapping around her thoughts. She had always fought against the ghosts of her past, but now those specters had taken on a more corporeal form. What now? She asked herself internally. Was there a way to turn this fear into a strategy? Her instincts told her this was no mere coincidence. This threat was personal, it was intentional, and it was time to confront it head-on. Taking a deep breath, she stood up, paced around the cluttered room, and refocused her mind on the budding collaboration with Emily. The stakes felt impossibly high, and she could not let herself be consumed by fear. Together, she thought, we can tackle anything. Let us review our project timeline, she said, seeking stability in the mundane. Emily leaned forward, her eyes widening with interest as they slipped back into work mode. As they moved through charts and tables, ideas flowed, each plan etched in determination rather than anxiety. Yet doubt flickered in the periphery of Lily's mind, a warning beacon that would not be ignored. What do you think about including a section on risk management? Lily proposed, her voice steadying as she realized this idea was as much about facing the unknown as it was about building their project. Emily nodded fervently, her enthusiasm revealing her own need to prove herself. As they jotted down ideas, Lily's mind began to crystallize. This was her moment to transform uncertainty into a blueprint, to convert the panic instigated by that anonymous message into a robust defense for both herself and the project. Here, Emily said, pointing at their plans. We can include potential threats and how we'll combat them. This isn't just about funds or timelines. It's about not allowing external forces to disrupt our goals. Exactly, Lily replied, the idea igniting a newfound vigor within her. She leaned closer to the paper, heart pumping with the pulse of ambition. We are not just prepared to move forward, we prepare for battles unforeseen. The work session took on a new energy, fueled by a blend of fear, ambition, and resolve. They began outlining who to reach out to, what investments would be needed, and how they might navigate through any hurdles. Each strategized line not only reinforced their project but also drew a boundary around the past threatening to resurface. However, as Lily detailed the contingency plan, her phone vibrated sharply on the table. The moment hung, full of tension, as eyes darted to the device. That notification could either ally her with her fears or provide a sliver of hope. She wiped her palms on her jeans, took a deep breath, and reached for her phone. As she swiped to unlock the screen, her heart thudded with anticipation. Was this the next installment of her confrontation with the past? Or was it merely a distraction? Lily opened the message, her fingers trembling slightly. The words flashed before her eyes, revealing deeper layers of challenge intertwined with potential. It's time to face something more than just old haunts, she whispered, newfound determination flooding her core. The sender did not realize what they were up against. Emily, she called, her voice stronger now. I think I have an idea on how we can turn this around. But it starts with standing tall, ready to reclaim what's ours. In that moment, she understood that the threat might just be the catalyst she needed to accelerate her development. Each step towards unraveling this mystery could lead not only to liberation from her past but also to new insights into her untapped strengths. But as Lily prepared to act, the chilling thought struck her: what if this confrontation revealed more than she anticipated? What hidden truths lay at the end of this thread, ready to unravel the very foundation of her ambitions? Without a doubt, the true test was about to begin, and she was determined to emerge transformed, no matter what the cost. Lily felt the weight of the message still lingering, its implications churning beneath the surface of her thoughts. "It's time to face something more than just old haunts," she had muttered, yet that phrase echoed ominously, heralding an impending upheaval. The adrenaline from their productive meeting with Emily began propelling her forward, nudging her instincts to shake off the shadows. "Lily?" Emily's voice broke into her reverie, bringing her back to the present. "What's the plan?" The question triggered a cascade of ideas, bubbling just beneath the surface. Lily tapped her chin, formulating her thoughts. "Let's focus on that message. I need to determine who this is coming from and why. The sooner we can pinpoint the threat, the better we can strategize." Emily smiled, the hint of eager determination in her eyes. "I can help with research. We can cross-reference potential contacts or entities that might be involved." "Perfect. I'll also start jotting down a list of people I've encountered in the past. Anyone who might want to sabotage me," Lily added, feeling the resolve solidify within. "This can go beyond just our project. It's about creating a safer framework for myself moving forward." As they split tasks, Emily diving into online research, while Lily scoured her own memories, shadows danced at the edges of her focus. This wasn't merely about a project anymore. It was a matter of self-preservation. Each name on her list brought back fragments of history, mirroring her stumbles in the professional world and the weaknesses she had struggled to shake off. Yet, among those memories lurked not just fear but also glimpses of her resilience. Times when she had risen from the ashes, stronger and more knowledgeable. She wouldn't allow the past to poison her potential. She had too much at stake now. Hours slipped into the evening, and the office around them began to darken, each flickering fluorescent bulb casting intermittent shadows. With every name Lily penned, each small revelation ignited the embers of change within her. She recalled mentors, former colleagues, and choices made, none of which could define her future. The narrative she would script now would be different, an edifice built on lessons learned rather than mistakes made. In a moment of clarity amid her frantic writing, she stopped and stared at the ceiling. What if I use this as an opportunity? I can not only protect myself but also showcase resilience. If I connect these threats with my project, maybe it could elevate our work and turn fear into something profoundly impactful, she considered out loud. Emily looked up from her research, her eyes brightening. That could work. We could frame it as a case study, illustrating how to manage external pressures. It could even engage the audience more deeply. Yes. The idea surged through Lily, reinforcing her courage. They could turn this reign of uncertainty into a testament of growth, exemplifying how to persevere through intimidation and ambiguity. But as enthusiasm coursed through her veins, the unease returned. What if the scrutiny she would inevitably face exposed fragile parts of her? Would her vulnerabilities become her liabilities? "Let us draft our ideas into a presentation," Lily suggested, suppressing self-doubt. "The real task is harnessing the fear, not letting it master us." With their sights set firmly on the horizon, they began constructing their presentation, each slide becoming a battle cry for resilience. Yet deep in her thoughts, the gnawing question remained: if she published the truths of her struggles, would they empower her, or would they create further vulnerabilities to exploit? As they continued, Lily felt the pressure mount, a delicate balance between offense and defense gripping her increasingly. What awaited them could prove to be a double-edged sword, revealing not only the depths of her courage but also shadows she had long buried. The evening unfurled into night, each passing moment brimming with anticipation and dread. The laptop screen, illuminated with their plans, felt like both a beacon and a warning. She would need to act swiftly, but what if the consequences of her revelations were greater than she'd imagined? The world would certainly respond, And Lily was increasingly aware that the stakes she had chosen to confront weren't merely personal. With a deep breath, she took a moment to center herself, vowing that she wouldn't falter this time, not when so much was riding on her shoulders. But as the clock ticked onward, she caught sight of a flicker of movement outside the window, a figure in the shadows. The sight sent a chill racing up her spine. Who was watching? Was her past already upon her? The unsettling feeling settled into her stomach as she considered the implications. Now it was not just about her or their project, it was about confronting the realities lurking just out of sight, waiting to strike. The true showdown approached, and uncertainty loomed in the corner of her mind, leaving her with the pressing thought, would she be the hunter or the hunted? Lily stood resolutely in front of her invention prototype, her heart pounding with a high-stakes elation. The days of sleepless nights and tireless commitment had led her here, ready to launch a project that could impact families like hers. She had transformed from that desperate girl into a visionary, channeling her past into an indomitable drive to succeed. No longer shackled by shame, she embodied resilience, showing the world she could achieve much more. The day of the launch arrived, and with every tick of the clock, a mix of excitement and nervous energy coursed through her. She entered the community hall filled with people, both familiar faces and hopeful newcomers, eager to witness her debut as an inventor. The moments before stepping on stage teased at the familiar grip of fear, but it was now coupled with profound confidence. She had conquered her past, and doubt would not sway her any longer. As she began speaking, she shared the story behind her invention and the lessons she had learned along the way. "This is not just a product, it's a statement," she declared, awareness dawning in the eyes of her audience. "We can rise from our mistakes. We can create change, even in desperation." Echoes of past judgments lingered, but they only fueled her fire. She demonstrated how her invention could deliver nutrition affordably, using stories from her community to illustrate its importance. The room gradually transformed. Where once appraisals had been met with stormy skepticism now grew empathetic understanding. People began to connect not only with her words but also with the purpose behind her invention. As she navigated through the presentation, seeing engagement spark among the attendees grounded her wildly racing heart. Several members of the community expressed interest in supporting her through grants and resources they had once previously doubted she could access. She felt empowered, proving to both herself and others that a second chance could produce remarkable outcomes. "Lily!" A voice broke through from the back of the room. It was Emily, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you. You've done more than I ever imagined." The warmth in Emily's voice illustrated how far they'd both come. In that moment, Lily realized that reconciliation and growth weren't just confined to her journey. Collectively they gained momentum, shedding the weight of their shared past. With completed fundraising and proposals in hand, the community responded with donations exceeding her expectations. Each contribution reinforced her standing, not just as the girl who once stole but as a powerful innovator capable of inspiring profound change. The trust she began to build transcended the walls of her past, transforming into an authentic professional identity. Weeks later, Lily found herself addressing a larger panel of industry leaders, sharing her journey and vision forward. Through the collaborative efforts she had nurtured, her project was now gaining substantial traction, proof of diligence and dedication. As she reflected, she reminisced on her first desperate act within those grocery store walls, closed off from fear. That critical moment had spun her into a world of possibility, exposing how vulnerability could morph into fulfillment. Staring into the eyes of newfound allies and advocates, she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. Through education, community engagement, and her deep-rooted belief in people's capacity to change, she had achieved what she once thought impossible. As she wrapped up her pitch, she extended invitations for further collaboration, not just on her invention but on larger projects aimed at community upliftment. She was no longer just a survivor, she had become a pioneer, ready to step into a future forged by her hands. Lily returned home, her heart swelling with satisfaction and confidence. She turned on her laptop, and the message from an earlier shadow fell to the back of her mind. She had accomplished too much to let fear govern her. This was her moment. No more hesitating, she had proven she was undeniably capable. Now it's time for you to step forward. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It matters more than you realize. Comment your reactions and theories about Lily's incredible journey and this climactic conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need inspiration and empowerment in their lives. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for real transformation. You won't regret it. Don't wait even one more second to share.